Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone who's here participating with us and those who are watching at home or wherever you are. For the record, all the members of the Town Council are here today with the exception of Faith Denault, who is excused. And also with us today are Town Manager Cliff Bravier, our Assistant Town Manager John Apple, and our Town Clerk Molly Daisy. Could we please stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda, and before we approve it, Mr. Fry has asked that we add a report from the 4th of July Parade Committee. So with that addition, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held on October 15th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the financial report. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor. This report covers the budget through October 31st, 2021. We are 58% through the fiscal year 2022. On the revenue side, income from real estate transfer taxes, parking fees, licenses, and permit fees continue to be on or above budget estimates. As a result, we have collected 100.5% of the budget revenue compared to 80.6 at this time last year. On the expense side, we have completed our schedule of summer activities, and we have expended 61.6% of the budgeted amount compared to 56.1% at this time last year. Recognizing that this report is subject to audit, I respectfully move that the council accept and approve this unaudited report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, the next item on the agenda is announcements and recognition of visitors and public comment. Does anyone on the council have any announcements? Okay. I would ask anyone in the audience, if you have any comments on something that is not on the agenda today, please, you can have the opportunity to say it now. Okay, that was easy. All right, so we go to reports. The first report we have is from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Mr. Boswell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. We continued, at last meeting, we continued to evaluate and review the comprehensive plan. We're about, I'll say 97% there. And hopefully after this meeting tomorrow, we will probably be complete and prepare it to send it to you next year, early January or February. We did have an extensive discussion on permeability of driveways and things such as that, and we're working on a proposal to change the requirements to require more drainage in the town on private property. Once that's finished, again, beginning of next year, we'll probably send that forward to you. We had one item for a re-subdivision of an existing parcel into 2 lots. There's a little bit of problem that came up with that, so that has been deferred until later. We also made a decision we will not be meeting next month because of the Christmas holidays. Any questions?
Any questions? I had one.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
said you would have that to the council by January, the comprehensive plan?
I'll probably say January would be the earliest. I would suspect maybe February or March is probably.
And when is it due to the state?
Oh, we have plenty of time. Lou, did you remember?
We're way ahead of schedule.
Okay. Oh, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
That's good.
Yeah, we're ahead of schedule.
Okay,
To be
good.
quite honest, a lot of people who do these
they're actually late. I think, but we've historically been on time.
Okay.
Good.
Good.
Yeah, and Lou and I will, once it's to you, we'll be meeting with the state and
Yeah.
the appropriate people to go over any concerns they have, because they do review the plan.
Yeah, I just wanted to know so that we had plenty of time and the public had
Oh,
plenty
yes,
of time too.
yes. No,
Okay.
yeah, we're in good shape.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Boswell. Okay, the next, Mrs. Denault isn't here today, so there won't be a report from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Committee. A report from the Non-Residential Design Review Committee, Mr. Kilmer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The committee met on the 12th of November of this month. The applicant was Ms. Jamie Idji. She's the owner of Yuppie Puppy up at the 123 Garfield Parkway, Suite 6. She basically has created a new wall sign, quite attractive. It says Yuppie on one side, puppy on the other, and a picture of a dog in the middle. It's very attractive, meets all the non-residential, all our standard codes, sign ordinances, and our town code, and it was approved unanimously without any dissent.
Next item on the agenda then will be a report from the 4th of July Parade Committee. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mayor. The 4th of July Parade Committee had their first meeting today for the 2022 parade. We had a good turnout, which I was happy about. We made nominations for a parade grand marshal, which we'll follow up on. And because we had shirts already made for 2020, but of course we didn't sell them because of COVID-19, we're going to see if we can alter the date from 2020 to 22, because we were very happy with the design and color. So we're looking to that in a moment. And our next meeting will be in February. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Fry. Glad to hear there'll be a parade this year.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and then the next report is from our town manager, Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, Council, I'll begin my report by doing something a little bit more pleasant than normal, and I'll ask our event coordinator, Julie Molesky, to talk to us about our holiday events and also our fire and ice event.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to say we are moving forward with holiday events this year. We are starting with our Friday night party for Bethany Beach property owners right here in Town Hall. That's on December 3rd from 4 to 6. And then the next day will be the public party that we traditionally have the first Saturday in December, December 4th. It's going to be the Santa party in town here with photos, and then we're going to do our different rides through town. We'll be running 2 trolleys that day, one for rides, but then also one to commute people to destinations locally to get them here to and from. And then we'll also do a tree lighting at 5 o'clock that night. We're going to be featuring the Southern Delaware School of the Arts Choir, so we're happy to have that as well. That event will kick off Weekend Wonderlands in Bethany, which is a townwide collaboration that we do with the Chamber every year, and that will run each Saturday running up till Christmas, so the 4th, the 11th, and the 18th. And then, speaking of the Chamber, they are also having Fire and Ice again for 2022, and that will be the weekend of January 28th through the 30th. The town will be a sponsor of that as well, and this year's theme is rock and roll. So the town is getting a 8-block sculpture of Elvis, and we'll be featuring Jesse Garen's tribute to Elvis as a concert that night. So we'll also be doing a bonfire Friday night, which is the fire piece of that event. And big announcement, we'll be doing fireworks as well. So that will all, they're going to try to keep the Bethany events to one day, which will be that Saturday. So more to come on that, and happy to report.
Thank you, Julie. Speaking of events, the town sent out a survey via listserv, and we have it on our Facebook events page, and it's also available here in Town Hall to fill out. And it's the annual survey that we do at the end of our season to determine what everyone wants to see regarding entertainment and what they thought of the shows presented. Part of the question this year is how everyone feels about what we did with our shows. This year, we cut back events in the summer and we extended into the fall season. We've got a fairly positive response that indicates that fall is well received, but not a lot of people have really submitted the surveys. So we're asking if people take a look at that, let us know what you think. Again, initially it looks like off-season, into the shoulder season events are very well received and less enthusiasm for the summer events. So please take the time, if you haven't, to fill the survey out. The town is beginning a project that is going to rehabilitate, construct or reconstruct alleys in the 200 block of Bethany Beach, east of Route 1 on our east-west streets. We've identified 3 streets initially that have existing alleys, but those alleys are in some disrepair, some are overgrown, and we're in the process of writing all affected property owners and asking them how they feel about the alley being reopened, reconstructed, and regraded. When that's done, we have 2 alleys that have never really been opened in town, and we'll follow the same process there. But there are issues with those alleys. They've never been opened, never maintained by the town, and never graded. So we will again ask those property owners if they want the lots opened, if they want the alleys opened. Not every property owner is receptive to that. Not every property owner wants their alley open to any sort of traffic. So that'll be something we're doing here in the off-season as time and staff allows. Comcast is hard at work in the community. If you have not been the beneficiary of having Comcast work in front of your home, it's not going nearly as smoothly as any of us had hoped. We have to break an egg to make the omelet and all that, but there's a lot of work in front of every specific home, test pits, drilling, cross boring. Comcast is doing its very best, but it's not without its problems, these installations. On any given day, we have 2 to 3 different water lines that are broken and repaired, and we move on slowly. Comcast is really working hard to have us operational as soon as possible. They have 3 crews working in town at 3 different locations, and they'll be shifting all of their emphasis to the east side of Route 1 as soon as possible, with the idea that better they be out of this area come summer than still working here come the summer months. A number of years ago, staff came to the council at a point in time when we were considering resurfacing our boardwalk. And staff advocated to the council that we try something different as a board material. And we used a board that's manufactured by a company in Norway who actually ships it to the U.S. And that board was promised to have a life that was 3 to 4 times the expectancy of your normal pine treated board, and doesn't twist, doesn't knot, and doesn't splinter like the pine board. Within 2 or 3 years of the installation of those boards, the boards began to deteriorate. And those boards were quite expensive. If we hadn't been able to repair it, I was prepared to blame our public works inspector for it, but as time went on, the company sent a team of engineers and scientists to Bethany almost immediately. They looked at what the problem was, and they began a process with us using a different type of pine, a different species of pine, of giving us boards to reboard the boardwalk. Well, that process complete, and we have reboarded the entire surface of the boardwalk with those new boards. The product is Kebony, and the fact that they've been able to stand behind their product like that is really incredible in this day and time. So that's completed. We have some ramps that need to be done. We'll be trying to do them in Kebony. We will ask Kebony or beg them a little bit more for a few more boards, but even if not, they've really stood behind their product. And Mayor, that's all I have.
Anybody have any questions? I just had one. Those alleyways would be between Atlantic and Pennsylvania, right?
Yes,
Okay.
200 block.
And how do you handle it when some people want them done and some don't?
At that
On the
point in
same
time, I
street?
think we'll probably convene a little bit of a public meeting so neighbors can speak about it. Again,
Okay.
I know there are some people that will not want them open, but some people in the undeveloped and unopened alley have standing water behind their property, want it opened, maintained, and graded.
Okay.
So we'll see how that works out.
Okay,
Maybe we can fill the room again, so.
yeah,
okay.
thank you.
Mayor?
Yes,
Cliff, staying with the alleys, when you say they may be opened for what? Traffic?
Open so the property owner can access their property from the rear, much as you
With
see in...
traffic.
Much as you see in the 100 block, yes.
Okay.
But if you look to the end, especially in the north end of town, you'll see a number of alleys that are fairly closed. Hollywood is closed, but at one point in time was open. But there's a couple of alleys north that we don't think have ever really truly been open in anyone's recent memory. And staff memory goes back about 38 years for that, so.
Thank you.
But Cliff, those are just for the people that own property. That's not a throughway for
No,
people to
there's no
get.
through alleys.
Yeah.
But the alleys in the 100 block are not through, but people still use them. They're still open public alleys, so.
Cliff, also, isn't there some benefits of these alleys from the standpoint of EMS and emergency vehicles entering the property from the rear? especially
Certainly,
in the summertime?
whenever you can make your property more accessible,
Yeah.
especially in the dead of summer.
In the
that's a
summertime,
benefit.
where,
Cliff, in the 100 block, the alleys, when they're open, are used for trash service. If the alleys in the 200 block were opened, would they be used in the same way, or would trash still be collected from the street?
I would think, and I would defer to Public Works, that they'd want to stay in the street, that the pulling in and the backing out becomes its own separate issue.
Yeah.
And that's what they would have to do in those alleys.
So on the alleys that dead end at Coastal Highway, you wouldn't connect them into Coastal Highway. You
Oh,
can't connect
no,
them into Coastal Highway.
no.
Right.
I don't think Del Dot allows that, do they?
Not in a million years.
Yeah.
No. Okay, no more questions? Thank you, Mr. Gravier.
Fair.
The next item on the agenda, there's nothing under old business. We have new business. Discussion, consideration, and possible vote to continue residential parking permits to park in the ocean lots and street ends. Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, council, this past summer, we conducted an experiment to see how well received the idea of opening up beachfront lots to people holding residential parking permits would be. We've received a number of emails, not an overwhelming number of people from residents supporting the idea. And one of the things we also wanted to look at was the revenue impact. I can tell you that we gauged the loss of revenue to be roughly 3.9% of all hourly parking revenue. So that would be all meter and machine revenue generated, and that equates to about $80,000 and roughly 3% of all parking revenue. I would offer, from our perspective and what we've heard back and the feedback we've received, that I would offer and suggest to the council that we continue this into next year, and evaluate it again another year farther away from COVID to see what the impact is. But again, a number of emails supporting it, nothing negative about it, and I think from what many of you have heard, it has been well received by the community.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we continue the use, the residents use their resident parking permits to use the oceanfront lots on street ends.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion? Okay, hearing none, does anyone in the audience have anything they would like to say about the subject? Is there anybody opposed? Okay, hearing none, no more comments from the audience. We have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? At the risk of your own life. Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you very much.
The next item under new business, discussion, consideration, and possible vote on a resolution in support of an application for a grant from the Delaware Department of Natural Resources and the Environmental Control to help offset the cost of developing a plan to restore and preserve wetlands in a 15-acre town-owned property, and a study of the feasibility of creating a nature-based pedestrian pathway across the property. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Kilmer. As you all know, at our meeting on July 16th, the council approved an application to DENREC for a grant to help develop a conceptual plan to restore and preserve wetlands on the 15-acre town-owned property, which is commonly referred to as the Walchuk Demitatus properties. And second, to determine the feasibility of constructing a pedestrian pathway across the property between Central Boulevard and 2nd Street. If approved, the grant would pay half of the estimated $27,000 cost of the project. Subsequently, DENREC requested additional information from the town to include the resolution we are considering today in order to complete the application process. Under the resolution, the council represents that upon approval of the grant application, the town will provide funding for its share of the cost of this project. The town will assign a project manager to administer the grant, and thereafter, the town represents that it will maintain the property in accordance with the terms and conditions of a grant agreement between the town and DENREC. I want to emphasize that the grant application for the project is the first step in a fact-finding process to develop a restoration plan and determine whether a pathway is feasible. Today, we are not considering the merits of a pathway or any aspect of a possible restoration plan. And with that, I move that we approve the resolution.
Second.
Any further discussion, any comments from the members of the council? Anyone in the audience wish to address this issue?
Please, Mr. McGrath, please use the microphone. No, nobody at home can hear you. Okay. Mr. McGrath wanted to know if, for those at home, Mr. McGrath wanted to know if these were two separate grants or one grant. And is that your question, Mr. McGrath?
Is there a grant to redo the wetlands, to make the wetlands what the state wants the wetlands to be? And is there a grant to study the pathway, bike path, through the wetlands? Is it two different grants or one total grant?
There's one grant.
Shouldn't it be two?
No. This is part of, this is one of the grants that is, you can apply for under DENREC.
It's DENREC, it's a trails grant. At the same time, it allows us to restore, to plan to restore, not to restore, but to develop a plan for restoration of the property.
Does that answer your question, Ms. McGrath?
Just the point that it should be two different grants, because you're doing two different things.
I think it's all part, my understanding is that it's all part of the one process that you submit to DENREC. And I don't know if Mr. Apple has anything to add on that? Mr. Apple has been the point person working on this.
It was one application that incorporates both aspects of the project into the planning and feasibility study of that project. So I proposed both aspects. DENREC liked it. They liked both aspects, and they've moved us forward into the last step of the process, incorporating both aspects of looking at the feasibility of the trail and enhancing and restoring the wetlands of the property.
But point of clarification, Mr. Apple, that doesn't mean that if they approve one, they approve both. They could reject one, couldn't they? Or one could not be in conformance with their, whatever their rules are.
It's for the actual proposed plan that incorporates both aspects. So
the change in that would come, the grant will allow us to determine, number one, whether a path is permittable, and then what the construction of that path would be, and then they'll look at whether or not that's ecologically friendly, environmentally friendly, and whether or not we should proceed. So that's what the grant does. It's not saying yes or no to either thing. It will allow us to develop the concept and the plan for the restoration and determine the feasibility of the path. When the grant talks about intent to design, we need to know what our engineers and our scientists tell us would be the proper thing to construct across the marsh if we do that, and what that would be. And with that in hand, then we can ask the follow-up questions and have our discussion and dialogue.
And if the pathway is not feasible, we would still be committed to restoring the property.
Absolutely. We've already taken some initial steps to do that. We missed the window of opportunity to begin to deal with the Phragmites that's overrun the property because it needs to be done in the summer. We've missed that window, so it'll be something that we'll be doing, moving ahead with, whether we're awarded the grant or not. in the future. But we're looking to offset some of the cost for the plan that's needed to first remove it and then what replaces it.
Yes, Mr. Shepley.
As you and Mr. Gravier have adequately stated, and at the risk of repeating you, I would like to just remind everybody, what we're talking about today is just the acceptance of allowing the state to pay for half of this feasibility study, the first step. I want to make sure that everybody understands there will be subsequent steps, and one of those, or more of those subsequent steps, will be requesting input from the citizens for the path, if the feasibility study even says it can be had. So you're going to have your feelings heard. Your thoughts are going to be heard in a public forum. We are going to listen to that. We're not going to make any decisions without hearing the thoughts of the people of the town of Bethany Beach. I want to assure you that.
But this just gives everyone an opportunity to base whatever discussion comes up on some information. Facts that we've
Yes.
received. Mr. Walsh, please use the microphone and identify yourself, sir. Not that anyone needs to know who you are.
It's not that I'm speaking out of turn here. I understand what you're saying. Can you hear me all right?
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Who are you?
I'm sorry? Oh, all right. My name is No, all right. My name is Jack Walsh. My wife and I, Jerry, and I bought our house on Wigan Lane some 36 years ago and resided there full-time for the past 25 years. As some of you know, I had some good fortune to serve on the council and held a number of positions, including the mayor. Just to acquaint everybody who I am. But my concern, I had a presentation here I wanted to present to you folks that talked to primarily the issue of providing bike paths and pedestrian paths across our marsh. And it appears you've already made a decision by going forward with a study. That's how I read this. The fact that somebody within your organization wants to put a bike path and a pedestrian path across the marsh. Does that make sense? Because you're requesting a study for feasibility of this.
May I respond to that?
yes.
Okay. The way I look at it, if somebody brings up an idea or something, or the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee says, we recommend a bike path, or Mr. Gravier does, if I just accept it or throw it out, I'm not doing my due diligence as a council member. I'm not serving the people of this town to the best of my ability, because it's not based on anything that's factual. So the next step to me, and I could be wrong, I could be completely off base, the next step to me with the training I have as an attorney is to get the facts, to gather the data. And part of the data is it something that DENREC would approve or the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers would approve? And there's plenty to show that there are pathways in wetlands and pathways in marshlands too. But that doesn't mean that it can be done here or that it should be done here. But to me, I'd be shirking my responsibility as a council member to the entire town if I just said, heck no, I don't think that's a good idea, or heck yes, I do think that's a good idea. What kind of a person would I be? That's just my own personal opinion.
understand.
So to me, I have not made a decision whether or not a pathway is a good idea or whether or not it should go forward. But give me the ability to do my job
All right? Now, I'm sorry.
for the good of everyone.
Using that rationale, it would be appropriate, I think, for me to give you my opinion of this.
That's fine.
If that's all right.
I appreciate that, Mr.
Okay.
Walsh. Thank you.
All right, let me do that if I can.
Yes.
As a side note, 20 years ago, in July of 2001, I attended a town public hearing to construct a roadway through the wetland property linking Central Boulevard to Second Street. I believe the largest attended meeting in the town's history. The result was denial of the roadway. Mayor Gordon, back in 2014, proposed a similar approach as far as a bike path. That never went anywhere. So there's precedent here from our population that they don't want this to happen. That being said, let me just take this a little further. I must first commend you folks, after many years of controversy and negotiations, that the town was able to successfully purchase the approximate 14-acre Walcheck tract with the goal of preserving it in its natural state for the ecological and flood attenuation reasons. That was the purpose, as I understood it. That being said, for the record, I would like to present my position on the current motion before us today. Discussion, consideration, and possible vote on a resolution in support of an application for a grant from the Delaware Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Control to help offset the cost of developing a plan to restore and preserve wetlands on a 15-acre town-owned property. Definitely favor that. That's the thing to do, without question. And the study of the feasibility of creating a nature-based pedestrian pathway across the property. Not in favor of this. I'm against this for the following reasons. I understand the reason for the pathway is to mitigate the safety risk for pedestrian and cyclists, presumably caused by Route 26 traffic. Unless the town has conducted a study of the safety situation for pedestrians and cyclists, the assumption that the proposed path would have a safety benefit is anecdotal and speculative. What information and data does the town have that would shed light on any safety aspects associated with the construction of a new path versus keeping pedestrians and bicycles within the existing transportation corridor on Route 26? As a side note regarding my walking and bike riding, both east and west on Route 26, I have not seen or encountered any high volume of pedestrian or cyclist traffic. I hardly see much when I'm on those roads. Where is this coming from? Any data confirming this? Also, natural water flows will be disturbed, and even though the path will be constructed upon posts and with small footprints, the path in itself will shade critical habitat under the path and alongside it, degrading it from current condition. That's pretty obvious to most of us. The next question, if enacted, how could this affect the safety and quality of life of the residents and travelers in the area? For those of us who are not familiar with Central Boulevard, which would be a thoroughfare that connects the wetland pathway to Route 1 or Route 26, is very narrow, 19 to 23 feet. 24 feet is kind of the recommended size for the width of a street. And this doesn't consider bike paths or people paths. Is very narrow, as I mentioned, with ditches and swales on both sides of the road and no siding areas for cars to park or pull over. Also, at times, is further complicated by storm flooding. There is no room for the construction of the pedestrian and bicycle lanes, which I would presume would be required on both sides of the street to safely move the potentially larger amounts of new people traffic. Central Boulevard also serves as a conduit, funneling 4 streets of traffic through it, to and from Route 1 and 26. Wigan Lane, Gibson Street also serves as a cut-through for Route 26, as most of us know, I think, and Maryland Avenue and Pine Street, in all accommodating approximately 58 homes in that area. And this, along with traffic parking relating to Central Boulevard, despite its name, was not designed to accommodate this traffic load, people, bikes, and automobiles. I should point out that there was a town-sponsored traffic study performed between May 2015 and August 2016. Traffic peaks flow ranging from 304 to 1,008 vehicles were identified. This study was driven, for the most part, by the safety concerns relating to drivers ignoring stop signs at the intersection of Gibson and Central Boulevard. Although speed was not an issue, shallow sloping speed bumps were later installed with no obvious impact on traffic flow or speed. This should further heighten the safety concerns relating to an additional people traffic flow introduced into the area via the marsh. Also, there is a bus stop on the south side of Central Boulevard, which literally closes the street down during passenger usage. This traffic study was funded by the town. I think, Cliff, you were heavily involved in that at that time.
Yes, Mayor. I
Yeah.
think we recently sent you a copy.
Right, yes, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Also keep in mind, bike paths foster automobile parking. Some biking folks transport their bikes to the areas where they want a bike ride and park their cars in the immediate vicinity. Been there and done it. I've been guilty of that myself. If enacted, we could, in essence, have developed a mini Route 26 from St. Anne's Church to Route 1. This is approximately a half a mile long that could adversely impact adjoining neighborhoods, provide for unfettered access, and possibly affect home values in the more immediate area. I want to thank you all for your time in listening to me, and very much would like you to consider these points of view in your deliberations, and also to wish everyone here a very happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Mr. Walsh, could you provide a copy of your comments
Yes.
to the town clerk? And also, I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate your points, and they're very well taken, and that many of those will be considered as we go along through different studies, so that we do have something upon which to base a decision ultimately. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Gong?
This ought to be good.
Good afternoon. John Gahn, 676 Collins Street. For the record, I've had that house since 1981, for 40 years. I want to compliment the town for a number of things. One, for acquiring the Walcheck property at a time and place that development is running rampant and developers are finding ingenious ways of covering wetlands. What the town council did is to be applauded. Secondly, with all due respect to the prior the prior mayor, we're nowhere near having made a decision. If I read this correctly, it says it is to try to get the state to help pay for the cost of restoration and to study the feasibility of a nature walk. That doesn't, to me, does not mean that it has preconceived been approved. It may, the points, very, very good points made in the prior presentation, but they may all be mute if this study shows that you can't even, that in doing the restoration, that walkway would be a counter to that. And so I just applaud pushing ahead with this, and I would be in favor of pursuing this grant with the state. Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Hello, everybody. It's good to be back at the podium. Last time I was testifying in favor of acquiring the Walcheck track, so Anyway, Walchick just won't go away out of my life, I guess. On a really positive note, it was just a few years ago, I'd look around the room and knew nobody. Now I know almost all of you, so that's really cool. I feel so at home here. My name is Chip Smith. I'm a resident of 428 Wiegand Lane in Bethany Beach. Retired, living here now, thank goodness. I had over 40 years federal service in the federal government, first 20 working for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the second 20 overseeing the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, with emphasis in regulatory, wetlands protection, ecosystem restoration projects, and water resources planning. I get the message now that we're studying the feasibility. I was able to get my hands on a copy of the complete grant application this week. I hadn't read it before that. I've heard Mr. Shipley and, of course, the mayor say several times now, we're studying the feasibility, we need facts. I get that. And I also would like to acknowledge and thank the mayor for being extraordinary in terms of being responsive to questions I had on email. That really helped clarify a lot of things for me, and I was very impressed with the way that the mayor took the time to come through and provide explanation and clarification. Now, to get into the meat of why I'm up here, based on my 40-plus years of government service, I also know that if you don't raise objections up front, sometimes they don't get studied, and so then next spring or summer we'll have studies in our hand, and some of us will stand up and say, why didn't you study this, that, or the other thing? And then we'll be told, well, if you'd have raised the objection, maybe we would have studied it. So I'm raising some questions. So they're not objections, they're questions. To let you know that I'm not going to go through a long diatribe, I have in hand, if it's in accordance with the rules, a letter to the mayor and the town council. And it is for your information and consideration as you move forward, assuming you vote to approve the grant and start doing studies. I've laid out in detail a number of areas I really think we ought to study, so you have all those facts that you've been talking about. So you're going to be glad I don't have to read 10 pages of comments. But I would like to say I generally agree with Jack Walsh, who just spoke, and I urge you to take into account consideration of impacts to tidal and non-tidal wetlands, and particularly the synergies and the ecological effects when you fragment as a result of putting in a constructed elevated walkway. And I hope your contractor, whoever it is, will take a look at that. Cumulative effects are important, and if you sort of lop off part of that property, you neuter its connectivity and synergy with the rest of the property, the loop canal, the other canals, and the salt pond. Something to think about. I also am concerned that the walkway could act as a berm. Now, the Nature Center, if you have been out there, the walkway is perpendicular to the flow of water for the most part and doesn't seem to cause much of a problem. But this walkway will be parallel to the flow of water, and these things, just by their nature, they collect debris, and I'm not necessarily meaning garbage, I mean leaves and twigs and you name it, and a lot of sediment, and the water is constantly going up and down. I know it, I live there. You say the word rain, we get water in the cul-de-sac. And so you may have a feature that will act as a berm and adversely affect both water quality and flood attenuation, and I urge you to study that and make sure we're not setting ourselves up for induced effects that we don't anticipate. Another thing that I urge folks to look at is use, and I got this crazy idea. I pulled out a map of the town, a street map of the town, and I sort of did an informal analysis of my own. I looked at how many properties or homes and businesses were in the area that potentially would use this walkway. And clearly the whole town probably won't. It's mostly people that are west of Wiegand, although I included our little area east of Wiegand too in this. There are two big swaths of open area with no homes or businesses. And when I counted it all up and I considered during season and off season a couple other facts, it seems to me that use would be less than 5% of the total resident population, whether it's summer or winter. That's simply a practical matter, is people are going to use the path because they live there, and they may want that path really bad because that's a way for them to get from west to east. But I don't see a whole lot of use going east to west for a quarter-mile long path where you have to jog off of 26 and then jog back onto it potentially. And then the crossing at Central, as you know, you put up a flashing light. It's horrendous. And if you do get some traffic on this walkway, that could make that worse. You may need a stoplight there in that case. So I would make sure your folks do some sort of recreational and use analysis. My last comment for now, everything else will be in here. Is that okay that I submit this for the record? Okay. And
Thank you for not reading it.
yeah, yeah, I figured you'd appreciate that. The last thing, too, to think about, and have your contractor think about this is, I mean, on the one hand, you're looking at a restoration plan. A primary focus is to eradicate Phragmites. Phragmites loves disturbed landscapes. They come in anytime you construct or disturb, they'll come in and take over. So on the one hand, you're going to be trying to eradicate Phragmites in some parts of the tract. You put the walkway in, and frankly, it's like a Phragmites magnet. And I took pictures, which I can share with anybody who wants to see it, of just at the James Ecological Park, just west of Bethany Beach. And everywhere you see a walkway, it's lined with Phragmites. So, I mean, it's something to think about. You're spending money on the one hand to restore and remove, and then you're spending money potentially on the other hand to grow more Phragmites. So that's sort of my general overview, and I really thank you a lot for listening. I probably talk a little too long, but I feel so good that this has been open, and being able to get more information about the grant helped me a whole lot. And I know I'm not arguing about voting on construction tomorrow. We're arguing about feasibility, but I'd like to submit my questions for the record. Thank you.
Mr. Smith, the questions you submitted to me previously, too, were very helpful, so thank you.
And I will send you the electrons so you can share them easily with everybody and not have to go through a bunch of copying. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. Is there anyone else? Go ahead, sorry. Oh, Mr. McGrath has something to say.
You do the next one for me, right?
Thank you. I did it for you, I'm sorry.
My name's James McGrath, 507 Hudson Avenue, Bethany Beach. This is kind of my original question to y'all. I have an idea, a good idea of how to save some money by separating these two proposals or studies into two different studies. One, the reforestation or taking care of the wetlands. I don't think anybody's against that. We spent over $2 million to purchase that property to keep developers from developing it, and to take care of the property, to upkeep it, and to make sure the wetlands do what they're doing. That is important, and I don't have any problem taking some of the state's money. Clarification too, is this a 50-50 deal or 100% state, or?
It's 50-50.
So we have to pay half of those studies?
13.
Half the study is paid by Bethany Beach.
13.5.
I'm sorry?
13,500 out of 27,000.
Okay. I don't have any problem with the wetlands part of it. This is the third time I've been up here. In fact, it was the old town hall, the first time, of trying to keep some type of transportation process through the Walcheck property. So obviously, I'm opposed to this concept of a pedestrian. I don't think it's necessary. And what I'd like you all to do is, and you'll save money by just not even doing the study, because we don't want a pathway through that neighborhood. That would save you all some money. And requesting that, it would be nice if y'all divide this up. Are you going to vote on something today?
Just a resolution to go forward with a feasibility study with DENREC.
So that's gonna be, you're gonna spend $13,000.
Yes, sir.
Divide the two votes up, because you can tell the state, we just want money for the restoration of the wetlands. We're not gonna need any money for the bike path, because we're not gonna do a bike path.
We're going to do both, sir, as part of the feasibility study and the restoration of the wetlands.
Well, there is opposition to this bike path.
There is. I recognize that.
Well, you can stop it right here by just taking that study and not doing it, because we're not gonna do a bike path.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to save you some money. Can you all vote? Do a vote for restoration of the wetlands and a vote for the study of the bike path?
It's part of one study. Mr. Apple, one study?
Come on, John, help me out here.
One application, one study covering both pieces.
Couldn't you divide it right now? You're spending money. You could divide it right now.
We'd miss out on the grant application. So then we'd be actually spending more money.
Well, if you don't do the study on the bike path, somebody's gonna save some money.
Mayor, haven't we gotten some emails of people who are in favor of the bike path also?
But this is not a vote for or against the,
No, but it's
Yeah.
not just that
And I'm trying to
everybody's
avoid
against
that
it.
well,
us versus them against us, not in my backyard, in my backyard. I'm trying to avoid that, and you can avoid it by just not doing the study and forgetting to do it. You bought that property because you didn't want it developed. A bike path is going to be development.
you know, I spoke with Chris Basin out at the Center for the Inland Bays when we were considering this, and he said there is, you know, just what you said, Chip, about the different interruptions and everything. But he did say, too, that you have to consider the trade-offs. And so that's what we're doing. And Mr. McGrath, I do appreciate what you're saying, and we do have you on record. We note your opposition. But I feel it's our responsibility to at least go ahead with the study. And then we can determine, based upon that, and the pedestrian study, the traffic studies, the other types of studies, whether or not this thing is a good idea or not.
So noted, and I do not agree with you. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Jerry Simpson. I live at 513 Hudson Avenue in Bethany Beach. So I live within 100 yards or so of where the proposed path would begin. So I do have a few concerns. First of all, every night my wife and I walk our dog on Route 26 around the circle in the neighborhood, and I notice an awful lot of trash along the side of the road. So I'm naturally concerned that the additional traffic that would come into my backyard will bring a lot of trash. So that's one concern. Here in town, there's a lot of parking permit issues and such. I'm curious if the town council has considered whether there should be some parking issues in my backyard with what could be, you know, hundreds of people coming to have an avenue to the beach. I hear all the time from people who live in other neighborhoods that the rich people in Bethany Beach don't want the other people to park in our neighborhood. Well, if they can park right there, it's very likely we'll get quite a few people who will want to park there. So there's going to be increased trash, there's going to be increased traffic. I'm curious about what the county or what the town wants to do about trash collection, about parking permits, and these sort of things. I'm somewhat of a forensic accountant, so my concerns also are, how much is this thing going to cost? And how much is it going to cost to maintain it? I'm not aware that I've been told what this is going to cost and how that's going to affect the town's budget. Has that been answered yet?
No, that's why we're doing this, sir. And part of it is determining the cost. If it looks like it's something that would be feasible, there will be a determination of the cost, and that would be something that would be factored in.
Well, has anybody done any advanced planning as to what size the path would be and what it might cost?
Well, that's, the feasibility study is basically to determine what type of path could be constructed. You have to determine that first, I think, before you can determine what the cost would be. And that doesn't mean it would be go ahead. A cost might say something that it's cost prohibitive, or even that it's not feasible, that DENREC or the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers would not give you a permit under that, too.
Well, that sounds administratively very nice, but speaking as a forensic accountant and as a retired FBI agent, I'm into procedures. I've been involved in many, many trials during my career, and it just doesn't seem like the town has done adequate preparation to decide, or to determine, if you will, how much this path might cost. Just as a guess, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Would that not be a fair statement?
We don't know, sir. We're taking, this is a first step to find out.
Well, but you're going to commit $13,000 or so
To develop a plan and to determine whether or not it's
just to find
feasible.
out these things. Seems like maybe somebody should have called somebody to see, generally speaking, what a path might cost like this. It's about a half a mile long, right, give or take?
Yes, sir.
And, well, I don't have any way of knowing. There are other paths that I see that are over wetlands. Seems like somebody from the town could maybe call another town to get an idea, or talk to
Mayor,
somebody.
May I? Sir, this is just the very first step to see whether or not we can even obtain a permit for a path, and then to determine how the path might be constructed. We don't know, there's no one here that knows what question to ask. Is the path, the assumption is a path would be elevated. The engineers and scientists might come back and say that a path of pervious material at ground level might be better than an elevated path. We don't have any of the answers to those questions. This is the very first step, and I appreciate your background, but this is the very first step that we can take before we can even begin to take the next step. This is the very beginning. And to try to assume we can reach out and say, tell us what a path is, when we don't even know what it would be, I think it might be beyond the pale here, so.
I understand what you're saying. All I'm suggesting is, could there have been a telephone call to another town or to another jurisdiction?
To ask what question? What would, we don't even know what the path would look like, how it would be constructed, what it needs to be. So the cost for that varies on what you construct. We have no idea what to construct.
Or if,
Okay.
or if it's even permitted.
Or
to
even
be
if we can
constructed.
construct it, yes.
It might not even be permitted. We still have to do it.
I can't hear you.
It might not even be permitted. So there's no sense of getting, if we're flat out told right now, either through the Army Corps of Engineers or DENREC, that they wouldn't even permit this to happen, then what's the point of spending all this money or talking to somebody else when you don't even know whether you can build it or not?
I'm just suggesting a telephone call.
To who?
Do a little bit of advanced work to find out what this might cost and somewhat of an idea about how much this could impact the town's budget. That's all I'm suggesting. That's all I'm suggesting. Think about the trash that's going to be there, who's going to clean up the trash. Think about parking permits.
We will.
Thank you.
Think about the cost. You know, All right.
We will, and
Okay.
basically, thank you for bringing up those issues about the parking and the trash. We
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Any, is there anyone else? Mr. Walsh? It's just that people can't hear you at home. Yeah, thank you. And we want to hang on every word, Jack.
And remind us who you are again?
Yes.
Do you remember?
Well, I'm having that problem.
Oh, that was bad.
This is my 89th year, so I'm having that problem. No, what I wanted to point out here is what I had already said, that why are we doing this? Why, we're talking about how to do it and how much it's going to cost, but where's the outcry to do this? That's the question here. What precipitated this? Why are we wanting to do this study to put a pathway across the wetlands?
Mayor, I am the person that asked the council to consider the issue. Over the years, especially with the new cooperation we've experienced with DelDOT, with the crossovers, the pedestrian crossovers, and our ultimate hope that we're able to construct a pedestrian-operated red light at Central and Route 1, that a pathway that creates an alternative for a large segment of the community to safely negotiate Route 1 and reach the east side of the community might be a benefit for the community. So it was a simple ask to explore the option. We have received some emails, some phone calls positive, and there's some people opposed to it. Most of them are in the area where they think they'll be affected by it, but there are people far into the other side, far west of Wiegand, far west of the Walcheck property that have an interest. Not a lot, but we haven't publicized this. So the ask was made. It was taken to our Traffic and Pedestrian Control Committee. They took a look at it. They endorsed the concept, and we've gone ahead with the grant. So I'm the impetus for it. And again, as you suggested, there'll be a thorough safety study. Again, we hope DelDOT cooperates with us with the installation of a red light, which makes it even a safer venue for travel. But right now, with the crosswalk light there and the opportunity to leave 26, and counter to you, I have a different opinion about the number of people and bikes I see on Route 26, especially in the summer. An alternative for a family on bicycles to reach the east side of the community, I think, is a benefit, Mayor. So here I am.
Right, no, I understand. And the way we're approaching this is let's get metrics, let's
Yes.
make sure that
Yes.
we need the same thing to justify what you've just said.
And we're going to
Is
do
there a
every bit of
safety
it.
issue?
Is there a safety issue?
Yes.
If you can make something safer, is it a safety issue? If you can make travel safer, is that a positive thing?
You
Have
can
we-
always do that, Cliff.
Sure.
You can
Well,
always
here-
do that.
You can always do that, and here's a way that we might be able to accomplish that.
But I think personally that there hasn't been enough emphasis being made toward me to understand this. So why are we doing this when we don't have any basis for it? No technical basis, no numbers saying we in fact have a big safety issue. And because of that, we want to create an alternative path using the marsh into Central Boulevard, which is a small residential community, which is going to create another problem,
The chronology.
another safety problem.
The chronology, as I would see it sitting here, is that I can't ask the safety question. I can't spend the resources, shouldn't spend the resources to have someone study the possible benefit of a path unless I know a path can be constructed. So the first step in my mind is, can we do it? What would it consist of? Bring safety experts in, bring environmental people in to look at the impact, analyze the safety, and then combine them together, and then we all have that discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Mayor, if I may, I don't want Mr. Gravier to take all the heat for this decision. He may have instituted the decision, but I, as a member of council on July 16th, listened to it. I thought it was a reasonable request. I still think it's a reasonable request. I want you to know I have not made my mind up. I want to get the facts before me, but I think it is reasonable to proceed with this feasibility study that we're doing. Guilty.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Oh, boy.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Johnson. My lovely wife Tracy and I live in Sandpiper Drive in the Canal neighborhood. We keep a watchful eye over Rosemary, so be comforted in that.
Take turns.
Just a question. My assumption is that the feasibility study will actually report out on some of the concerns that have been addressed today. You know, the impact of trash, the percentage of Bethany Beach residents who would likely use it. Most importantly, the environmental impact. I mean, I'm guessing that some of the concerns that have been addressed today will be directly addressed in that report. I haven't read the scope of the grant application.
Mayor, if I may. No, what will happen, I believe, with the feasibility report, and John, please correct me, is that we'll analyze the permitting issue. We'll see what will be permitted. Then we'll have an idea what that construction might be, what DENREC, the Corps, the other permitting agencies that might be involved will approve. At that point in time, we'll ask for some sort of a rough graphic, if you will, from an engineer of what the path may look like. That's one segment of it. So we know we can do it. And then with that will come a plan for the restoration of the marsh. The property is basically blighted right now with Phragmites.
Okay.
At that point in time, we would do a separate environmental study, a separate study relating to the traffic and pedestrian safety and counts, and the council and the town would have to address issues like trash. And I have to tell you, as a town manager, I'm surprised that there's trash laying in the street because I generally don't see that. Trash, parking, those types of things. No one envisions, as we speak about it from my office, that there'll be a parking issue, that people will be parking to use the path, because it essentially is a 600 to 700 foot cut through. So it's not a destination, if you will. People aren't going to be traveling to ride back and forth on the pathway per se. It's more of a mode of transportation. We intend to put some educational components in the pathway if we're able to do it, but again, it won't be a destination. So those things will follow up with follow-up studies. All those, as has been pointed out here, will be the subject of future public discussion.
Okay, very good. Well, it's unfortunate those things aren't woven into this initial scope of work, but
The grant
understand
didn't
where we
allow
are.
that, so we were limited, so.
Very good, thank you.
Sir.
Thank you.
Again, anyone else?
Mr. Healy.
Mr. Healy?
Oh, boy. Ask him to introduce
My name is
himself.
Joe Healy, 974 Hawksville Street. In this little thing here, I think there's a very important group of words here, and that is a plan to restore and preserve the wetlands in the 15-acre town-owned property. That's why we bought the property, and I think that has to be paramount in what we get, and the information is here to cover that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Healy.
All right, if there's anyone on the council have any final words before we, yes?
I just wanted to add, I think when we talk about the onus for this, is it's important, obviously, to maintain and preserve the wetlands. I think that's an important goal. That's a goal of the grant application, to study that, the feasibility of doing that. I also think we've talked about in pedestrian and bicycle safety and our planning and zoning commission, the issue of pedestrians and vehicles interacting, and I think it's important to consider all options, whether it be a pathway through this wetland, whether it's feasible or not, but anything we can do to improve or limit interactions between pedestrians and vehicles is important to consider.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
All right. Would someone like to make a motion regarding
I did.
a resolution in support of an application for a grant from the Delaware Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Control?
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion passes.
The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on the Town Council Procedure and Protocol Manual. Mr. Kilmer.
Thank you, Mayor. This time of year, around this time of year, we look at the protocol manual for the members of Town Council. The purpose of this is multi-purposed, actually. In case we have somebody new on council, so they're familiar, get familiar with the procedures and how the town interacts with the public, how the meetings are run, or the kind of information you would need to be able to be a proactive member of council, and your ability to use various parts of the websites and other documents that the town provides. With that being said, this year we noted a couple little things that we'd like to update the council's procedure and protocol manual. And the two items that we're looking at, under standing committees, we've actually created 3 new committees this year. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Committee, the Stormwater and Flooding Committee, and the Telecommunication Committee. So those things would be added to the standing committees within the protocol manual. And one additional clarification we want to make, that was on page 46. Also on page, I think it's 54. Paragraph F, because of things change all the time, as you software used and stuff like this, we deleted a sentence that said, and the software applications such as Pages and WebDAV. So we just basically, because these software things change all, so we just take that out and just basically says, the town council members needing assistance can request training that's provided by the town staff and that kind of stuff. So we didn't make a direct reference of the software that the town uses, which I said it changes. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we amend the current town council procedure and protocol manual by adding the 3 new committees within the town, which I also am very supportive of, and also a change in eliminating specific software applications such as Pages and WebDAV.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
We've got Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety Committee. We have the word "and" spelled A-M-D.
Spelled wrong.
So I would
close.
propose that we spell it correctly.
We should put in the protocol manual that council members should be
Do you want to add
qualified,
spell
should
check
learn to
into the
speak,
paragraph F?
learn
Yeah.
to spell. Okay. Duly noted, thank you. With the change that Mr. Edmondson had made, there's a motion on the floor. Does anyone in the audience have anything to say about our protocol manual? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Kilmer. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on a contract submitted by Mid-Atlantic Waste Systems for the purchase of a new rear-loading garbage truck in the amount of $239,720. Mr. Gravier.
Mayor, council, you have before you a purchase order for $239,720 for the purchase of a 2021 Peterbilt chassis and high compression Durapack rear load garbage truck. This is a sole source bid. These monies are in our budget. When we began the exploration of purchase and we were putting together the package on the type of truck we wanted, we have discovered with other things that are going on in the world today that we would have a 1 to 2 year delay in the delivery of a new truck, and we dearly need to replace one of our trucks. When we looked at the current market, we had a vendor that was able to produce a truck for us, approximately $20,000 than we had hoped to initially spend, but can deliver the truck in the next 3 to 4 months. So that's why this is sole source. Again, purchase of a trash truck with a compactor for $239,720 from the Mid-Atlantic Waste Systems Company.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Anybody in the audience have anything? Okay, hearing none. So it looks like they last about 9, 10 years.
We generally get 10, 11, 12 maybe out, yes.
That's good.
And to emphasize, this is something that we budget for over the years. We're not just grabbing money that's not associated with this particular item. So it is in the budget, and you're just asking authorization
Yeah.
to spend the money.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. And the final item, next to the final item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible vote on canceling the December 2021 Town Council meeting. Mr. Fry.
Mayor, as in the past, I move that we cancel the December meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Anyone? Okay. We have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Next, we have a motion on the, we have an item, oh, I'm sorry.
Stealing my thunder.
See, I can't read.
Lastly, consider a motion to go into an executive session to discuss personnel matters pursuant to Delaware 29 C 11004, well, I'm not going to throw it all, subsection B 9 and 6, relating to personnel matters. So we'll take an adjournment.
Yes, I ask for I move that we go into executive session.
Yep.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Second.
All right. Again, I'd like to thank everyone
All
for
those in
coming.
favor?
Oh, I'm sorry, aye.
All those in favor? Aye.
Then we have a choice here. don't we?
Thank you all for coming, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, yeah.
Thank you.
You know,
Oh, by the way, sit down.